He thought the worst part was being thrown out with a trash bag. It wasn't. The worst part was finding out someone had been watching him the whole time. And what he discovered inside that abandoned garage wasn't just an inheritance. It was proof his entire childhood had been manipulated. He was 18, and he was about to learn why. The morning Daniel Mercer turned 18, no one said happy birthday. They handed him paperwork. The fluorescent lights in the county office flickered overhead, buzzing, relentless. Miss Garrison didn't look up when she spoke. "You've officially aged out of state care. You have until noon to vacate." Vacate, like he was a tenant, like childhood was a lease agreement. Daniel stood there with a plastic grocery bag holding 2 shirts, 1 pair of jeans, a toothbrush. 18 years old, and everything he owned weighed less than 10 pounds. He nodded once, because that's what you do when you're used to being temporary. You nod, you leave. You don't ask where you're supposed to go. Outside, the sky hung low and gray over the small Ohio town of Redvale. Cold winds scraped across the parking lot. Daniel stepped off the curb, and that's when the black sedan pulled in. Not flashy, not new, just deliberate. The window rolled down. Daniel Mercer? The man inside wore wire-rimmed glasses and a navy coat too expensive for this neighborhood. Daniel didn't answer. The man studied him carefully. "My name is Thomas Hale. I represent the estate of your grandfather." Daniel blinked once. "I don't have one." "Yes," the man said evenly, "you do." And just like that, everything he thought he knew tilted sideways. Daniel's parents died when he was 6. Car accident, rainy highway, wrong place, wrong time. That was the official story. No relatives stepped forward. No grandparents, no aunts, no uncles. Just paperwork and rotating foster homes. So when Hale handed him a cream envelope with his name typed neatly across the front, it felt like a mistake. Inside was a deed, 1 property, a defunct auto garage on the edge of Redvale, and a note. "Collect the keys from the law office. Decision must be made within 60 days. Decision. What decision? Daniel asked. Hale held eye contact. The property has significant code violations and back taxes. A development firm has already made an offer to purchase it. If you sign today, you walk away with $45,000. $45,000. Daniel had never seen 400 in one place. And if I don't, then you inherit the debt and the responsibility. The sedan idled. Wind pushed trash across the pavement. Daniel stared at the deed. His grandfather's name read clearly at the top, Harold Mercer, the same last name he carried through every foster file. Why now? Daniel asked quietly. Hale paused. Because he left it to you, specifically. Daniel swallowed. He never came for me. No, Hale said. He didn't. And that answer wasn't enough. The garage sat past the railroad tracks, behind a chain-link fence bent inward from age. The sign out front had lost most of its letters. MERC-auto-EPAR. The building sagged like it was tired of standing. Daniel stood there holding a brass key. $45,000. Or this, a graveyard of rust. The smart choice was obvious, but something gnawed at him. If this man had wanted nothing to do with him, why leave him anything at all? He pushed the key into the lock. The door resisted, then gave. Darkness spilled out like it had been waiting. He stepped inside. Dust hung thick in the air. The smell hit him first. Oil, metal, something faintly sweet and rotten. The light switch didn't work. Of course it didn't. He used his phone. The beam revealed 2 lifts, tool cabinets, a counter layered in gray powder. Everything abandoned mid-breath. On the back wall hung a faded photograph. Daniel walked closer. His chest tightened. It was his father, younger, grease on his cheek, smiling, standing beside an older man, Harold Mercer. He reached out, touched the frame. He had never seen this photo before, never knew it existed, which meant something very simple. Someone had kept this place closed on purpose, and that someone had planned for him to see it. The office door creaked open. A metal desk, drawers partially open, calendar frozen on March 3 years ago. On the desk sat a single envelope, not dusty, not yellowed, clean, as if it had been placed recently. Daniel's pulse quickened. He opened it. Daniel, if you're reading this, you ignored the easy money. Good. You deserve the truth. His breath hitched. Your parents' accident was not random. The world went very still. Your father was working on a vehicle for a man connected to a local real estate group. He discovered modifications, hidden compartments. He refused to finish the job. 2 weeks later, the brake line in his own car failed. Daniel's vision blurred. No investigation followed, because I was warned to keep quiet. I was told if I pursued it, you would not be safe. The letter shook in his hands. I kept you at a distance to protect you. I regret it every day. Daniel stumbled back into the chair. His whole childhood, the loneliness, the silence, it wasn't abandonment, it was fear, and someone had built their fortune on that fear. Outside, tires crunched on gravel. Daniel froze. Headlights cut across the dirty windows. A black SUV. He stepped toward the front of the garage, staying in the shadows. The same development company Hale mentioned. The logo on the door matched the letterhead in the office envelope. A man stepped out. Suit, polished shoes. He didn't knock. He tried the handle. Locked. Then he looked around, scanning, watching. Like he expected someone to be there. Daniel's heart hammered. The man made a call. Daniel caught one word through the cracked window. Kid. The SUV pulled away. And Daniel understood something terrifying. They weren't offering $45,000 out of generosity. They were buying silence. Again. He sat in the dark for hours. The easier path glittered in his mind. Apartment, food, security. No more sleeping on couches. No more wondering where next month would happen. But every time he imagined signing the paper, he saw the photograph on the wall. His father smiling, trusting, unaware. And something inside Daniel hardened. They thought he was disposable, temporary, like the system had treated him, like life had treated him. They were wrong. And maybe you understand that feeling. Maybe you've been the person everyone assumed would take the easy way out. The person underestimated, overlooked, silenced. If you've ever been handed a quick fix that cost you your dignity, you know exactly what Daniel is facing right now. Stay with this story, because what he does next is something most people never find the courage to do. And if you believe the harder road sometimes leads somewhere greater, consider subscribing. Not for me, for stories like this. for reminders that walking away isn't always freedom. Sometimes it's surrender. Now watch what happens when an 18-year-old with nothing decides to fight back. Daniel didn't call Hale. He didn't sign. He started cleaning, piece by piece, dust rising in thick clouds, windows pried open, air moving again. Under a workbench, he found a locked safe bolted to the concrete. It took him 2 days to crack it. Inside were folders, receipts, service logs. One logbook marked with a red tab. It detailed vehicles serviced for the development company, VIN numbers, dates, notes, and one entry circled, his father's car. Brake system replaced. 2 days before the accident. Daniel felt ice settle in his veins. This wasn't speculation. This was evidence. He took photos of everything, uploaded copies to cloud storage from the diner's Wi-Fi, sent anonymous tips to a state investigator hotline, and then he waited. The SUV returned 3 nights later. This time they brought paperwork, condemnation notices, code violations, threats wrapped in bureaucracy. Daniel stood in the doorway, 18, alone, but not afraid anymore. "I'm not selling," he said evenly. The suited man smiled thinly. "You don't have the resources to keep this place." Daniel met his eyes. "Neither did my grandfather." Pause. The man's jaw tightened. They left. Weeks passed. The investigation began quietly. Audits, questions, inspections. The development firm's stock dipped, then dropped. Turns out, Daniel's father wasn't the only mechanic who had refused certain jobs. The pattern unraveled. Charges followed. Not dramatic, not explosive, but steady, like a slow leak exposing rot. The twist didn't come in sirens. It came in a letter from Thomas Hale. It read, "I didn't tell you everything. I suspected the truth years ago. Your grandfather asked me to delay the will transfer until you were legally an adult. He believed if the company knew you were still a minor, they might try again." Daniel stared at the words. The inheritance wasn't timing. It was strategy. His grandfather hadn't abandoned him. He had been waiting for Daniel to be strong enough. 6 months later, the garage reopened. Not polished, not fancy, but honest. Daniel learned fast. Neighbors showed up. Old customers returned. The new sign read, "Mercer Auto. No and Son. No flourish. Just the name. Reclaimed." He didn't become rich. He didn't get revenge in headlines. But he did something harder. He broke a cycle. He turned silence into proof, and a building no one wanted into something that stood. So here's the question. If you were handed $45,000 to walk away from your history, would you take it? Or would you open the door and risk finding something that changes everything? Because most people never get that choice. Daniel did, and he chose the harder road. If you've ever had to rebuild from nothing, if you've ever discovered the truth hurt more than the lie, if you've ever decided that your story would not end where someone else tried to bury it, you're not alone. This channel is for people who choose the harder road, for people who fight quietly, who rebuild quietly, who win quietly.
Subscribe if that's you, not because of this story, but because there are more like it. And sometimes hearing one is enough to remind you who you are. Daniel walked into that garage with a plastic bag and no plan. He walked out with purpose. And sometimes that's worth more than any check someone tries to hand you. The door creaked shut behind him that first night, but this time, it wasn't locking him out. It was letting him in.